It's spring, and it's time to fish. This year, TakeMeFishing.org wants everyone to experience their first catch. Whether it's the first of the day, first of the season, or first of a lifetime, show it with hashtag First Catch. Adventure is waiting to be caught.
National League Central rivals go head-to-head this weekend when the Pirates face the Cubs at Wrigley.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out.
The pregame at 3 Eastern, first pitch at 4. Saturday on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNRadio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, it's Golick. Thanks for checking out the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Here's what we have for you from Wednesday. Rough night for DC Sports. Hawks last second win over the Wizards, and Rangers eliminate the Caps. Barry Melrose is breaking down the NHL's Final Four. Plus, we reveal the results of a new ESPN ABC News poll on Deflategate and get into what happens next for Brady and Company with Lester Munson and Ryan Smith.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
It was about a tough 10 minutes for the sports fans
Sure was.
of our nation's capital as the Caps and Wizards lose in heartbreaking fashion. Coming up in an hour at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, we are going to release the results of an ESPN ABC News poll on Deflategate. We and Good Morning America will exclusively be releasing these as they polled America about what their thoughts are on what happened with Brady and the Patriots and what it means for the team and for the NFL and his legacy and everything else. Fascinating stuff, so we'll get to all of that. But we begin, of course, with thrilling finishes last night, starting with Game 7 at the Garden. And Golick, you got your wish, you wanted, and you received overtime.
Oh, my gosh. I think everybody, I'm sure outside of the Ranger fans, wanted it to go to overtime. But, it was going to be the way the Rangers play. It was going to be a one-goal game, and I know I was hoping for overtime, and that's exactly what we get. Ovechkin scores in the first period where it looked like Washington just playing faster than the Rangers. Ovechkin gets that goal. The Rangers tied up in the second. They actually had a chance at the end of the first goal. I thought they were going to, the Perry tied up. Rick Nash. The breakaway. They're killing a power play. He gets a breakaway, but Hopi, for Washington, great save there as Nash tried to deke him. And then the second period, was it Kevin Hayes, I believe. Kevin Hayes gets the goal to even it up. So the third period you're watching, and, you're already on the edge of your seat because, the next goal going, and even a third period is probably going to end it. And then you get, under 10 minutes where it gets a little more frantic, and then under 5 minutes where it gets even more frantic. And it was fantastic. I was so happy it went to overtime. And then in overtime, as you heard, Stepan getting the goal off the rebound. Off the rebound shot by Girardi. Stepan actually won the face-off. Girardi gets a shot at the point, the rebound to Stepan. Hope he just couldn't get back on his feet.
All by himself.
Well, yeah, he's all by himself. Hope he makes the save, but can't get back on his feet. He's on his butt. And
he was brilliant.
He was. I mean, both goalies were in this. Lundqvist just listen. We know about hockey. When you get a goalie standing on his head, is the term everybody likes to use, you're in it. And this is exactly why the Rangers are in it. He is, without question, their best player. He is, without question, he's the reason they are where they are.
Henrik Lundqvist is the best player in New York sports right now. Yeah. I don't think there's any question about that. It's been a sort of a tough time, a tough year and a half in New York sports, with one exception. That exception has been the Rangers, who made it to the Cup Finals last year and now are in the Final Four off of a thrilling 3-1 series comeback. And I tell you, watching the overtime in the hockey, two thoughts. One is you can't breathe as you're watching, and the second is your heart breaks when the guys lose. Again, I don't have an emotional attachment the way I do in some other sports. I root for the Rangers. I'm a New Yorker. I want to see them win, but I don't live and die with it the way I would, say, for example, the Jets. So there is the side of me that does also watch Holtby's flat on his stomach as he realizes that moment has come and gone. He was so good in this series. Yeah. It was ridiculous. I would have felt just as bad, if not worse, for Lundqvist, who got less help and was even better in the series if his team had managed to lose at the end. But the Rangers, who were staring their more professional mortality in the face on Friday night, when I went into my daughter's dance recital, I walked into my daughter's dance recital, the Rangers are losing 1-0 Friday night at home in Game 5, and I figured that series is over. They managed to come back from that, and here they are on their way.
Well, fortunately, they were playing Washington, who now 5 times has lost these lost with a 3-1 when they're up 3-1. So that they haven't been able to hold the 2-game lead at a 3-1. Even a 2-0, they've lost a series as well. So again, this has been Lundqvist because he doesn't. This is not an offensive juggernaut team by any stretch of the imagination. So you're winning games 2-1, 1-0 with him and because of him.
Well, we told you yesterday he was going to allow one goal.
Yeah,
that's what he allows in Game 7s.
And he allowed it to the Ovechkin,
to the best player in the world. I mean, right now, I'm not the person to ask. We'll ask Barry Melrose. Will join us in an hour. But I don't think there's any question. I mean, I think many people would say right now, if Ovechkin isn't the best player in the world, he's awfully close. He made the guarantee in this series, and after the Game 6 loss, and you got to own that. And he did. I mean, he didn't try and back away from it.
He's going to have to.
That.
You said it, and I look forward to talking to Barry because we talk about superstars in sports, and Lundqvist is it for the Rangers because, as he talked about, there's really nobody else. You know, when you play other teams, you know who you have to stop on the ice. But for the Rangers, they don't really have anyone like that, according to Barry Melrose, and obviously we'll expound on that when he comes on. But it's Lundqvist. We know it. When you get a guy, a goalie, playing as well as he is, 8 saves in overtime. I mean, the overtime was frantic, as you would expect it to be, and you just waited for that one opportunity. The one opportunity, whether it was going to be a save and then a face-off, or if it was just going to be a save and the puck is bouncing around like it was here. Good save by Holtby, but it bounces right to Stepan, who's standing there by himself on the wing, and Holtby's on his butt. And there's nothing he can do about it. It's a clear shot to basically a pretty open net.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Last year, over 3 million drivers switched to Progressive. Call it. Click today. Find out if you could save. Lundqvist now 6-1 all-time in Game 7s, tying Brodeur and Roy for most Game 7 wins by a goaltender. He has won 10 straight elimination games at home, and it seems he gives up exactly one goal in every one of them. He's the best. I mean, he's the best. I live outside of the city. I follow New York sports more closely than anything else. He's the best player they have.
Yeah.
I will humbly submit that with the return of Darrelle Revis to the Jets,
you're hoping he takes that.
Well, he
mantle,
may be,
huh? Yeah.
but I mean, he's the best at what he does.
Yes.
Lundqvist is unbelievable, and single-handedly has them where they are now, and off they go to the Final Four. The hero Derek Stepan with Arlinda Cohen.
We just keep our wits about us. We don't panic, and we really just go out and play games. We just try to play the game of hockey and try to enjoy ourselves a little bit. And we have a good core that have been around, and we have a lot of conversations about what it's going to take and how what kind of Game 7s are like with our experience, and we just find a way.
Basically, what you get out of a hockey player. That's basically the way.
Pretty calm.
He really is. He was calm through that entire interview. That's just his personality. And then you just love the scene after the game. Obviously, everybody going nuts, but you can't help but say at every time, especially when you see it, the line, the handshakes that go on. I just love watching that.
Respect. That's what sports should really be about. You fight like crazy and then you shake hands.
Yeah, you fight on the ice, you fight on the field, on the hardwood, you fight for during the game time, and then after that, you respect one another as athletes. And then, not to say everybody loves one another as they're shaking hands, but I love the fact that they do that, and on goes the Rangers to the conference finals for the second year in a row.
It is the beauty or the hideousness, whatever, the blessing or the curse of the sport. And I think it's what some people love about it and others like less about it, is that it's such I'm about to use a terrible word, it's such a fluky thing. There's 8 million ways a puck can bounce.
Yeah.
And the puck bounces in one direction rather than another in that spot. And after whatever it is, 70, however many minutes, they wound up 71 minutes and change that they wind up playing last night. All of a sudden, Derek Stepan is standing completely by himself with an open net.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen for 71 previous minutes, and there's one bounce. There was someone standing by themselves at all times in a spot they would have scored if the puck had just bounced to them all night long, and that's the one moment that it chooses to happen. And that's, the team. If you watch the game, and I don't consider myself an aficionado, but I don't think you have to say the Capitals looked like the better team last night.
Right.
But basically controlled the action. As you said, they were playing faster. Yeah. They had more opportunities. But the goalie plays great, and then the one bounce that you need goes the Rangers' way.
And then from the athlete side of it, you brought it up before, and that's what happens normally in my sport, in football, it's a playoff game. Now, there could be a last-second game, or, you could be losing, and when the clock strikes 0, your season is over. in situations like this in series, in Game 7, the elimination game, and, it's play on, or today, literally, these guys in Washington will be packing up their lockers. I mean, you're playing in a great series. They're all one-goal series. You can move on and play, and the Rangers are moving on. And here you are today. You feel horrible after the loss. You go into work today, and you're cleaning out your locker. I mean, it's that quick. It just changes. The mentality gone. Playing in the mental drive of playing to, okay, now I have a bunch of time off that I don't want to have off right now.
Here's how good Henrik Lundqvist has been. The Rangers have just advanced to the conference finals. They are averaging 2 goals per game this postseason. That means that if the goalie gives up 2 goals, they can't win.
Right.
Can't win. And yet they've won 8 games and are advancing to the conference final. By perspective, the Ducks, the Blackhawks, and the Lightning, the other teams who will make up the Final Four, have averaged over 3 goals per game on their way to this
spot.
So
they're going to have to keep riding him all the way through this thing. And as they have Tampa Bay up next, we'll get a breakdown of that with Barry Melrose as well. And I mentioned the Capitals. I should finish it off on them. I mentioned 5 times now down 3-1. Well, it gets worse. It's the 10th time they blew a 2-game series lead.
Yeah.
So, wow. I mean, you got to be feeling good about yourself. But
some of that is this group. Some of it obviously
isn't. It's not all the guys, but that's a
I'm not a huge fan of those stats. And when Russell Baxter, our old football researcher when he used to work here, he would come on our show every week and do the 5 things about football. He would always give us a bunch of stats that went back to the 70s. And I would always say, what does this have to do with anything? And he would always say to me, Greeny, it manages to hold up. And he was right. It always does. There's no reason for it.
Because, the 10 times that happened, it's not all with these guys. So you think, why should it matter if it's not with these guys? Yet here they are.
It always does. For some reason, those stats always hold up. There's no explanation for it. There's literally no reason. Again, I don't know exactly how far back those go.
Most series losses having a 2-game lead to Stanley Cup playoff history.
No, I'm saying. So my point is, some of them are probably so long ago that literally not one person associated with this team now is still on it. And yet it still manages to hold up. Russell would be in here giving us stats about the Steelers in the 70s, and it winds up working out now. There's no earthly explanation for it, but it winds up being that way. So exciting night last night, and again, there's a great example of how we live in an event-based society, because the hockey, wherever you want to put the hockey in the pecking order of things that are going on. You get yourself a Game 7 like that, and everybody's paying attention.
They
You're
really
watching this, and you feel like the whole world is watching with you.
You're sitting on the edge of your seat because each goal could be the goal.
It's an event. It's a good event. Plus, the basketball games last night stunk. One was close and went to the very end. It was close, but we should not mistake. I was having this conversation with my son Steven last night. Don't mistake competitive with good. That game was competitive. It wasn't good.
At least you got an exciting ending.
You got an exciting finish. Well, the weekend you had ununbelievable finishes.
You did.
He was saying, Dad, it was the best weekend ever. I said, no, it wasn't. Just because 3 guys made shots with 1 second left doesn't mean it was great. 47 and a half minutes of lousy basketball.
Let him enjoy it. Let him say, son,
it was. Teach the young man.
And all of a sudden now you're deciding you want to be, the sage father. There's a difference between exciting and good.
Well, when are you going to learn that? This is my job, is to teach him things like that.
Let him learn in the streets where he's going to learn most of his things, okay?
Like his language. 2 things.
No, that's from his mom.
2 things that you learn that you have to teach your kids is the difference between competitive and good, and then how to take a blade of grass and blow like this and make a sound.
Oh, yeah,
remember
absolutely.
that? Did your father teach you that?
I mean, you kind of picked it up.
I can't do it. Could never do it.
You can't?
Can't still.
Really?
No. Can you?
Oh, yeah.
Can't do it.
Oh, absolutely.
You'll teach me after the show. All right. Anyway, thrilling finish last night. Another pretty good finish last night as, again, capping off or rounding off or whatever word you want to use for it, what was a miserable 10 minutes for the fans.
Sure was.
And I saw, I think it was Andrew Brandt. I think it was. Right before the 2 games started last night, Andrew, who is our football business insider, is a native of that area. He grew up in that area. And he said for someone who grew up in the Washington, D.C. area and has not seen a whole lot of really big nights, this is an awfully big night.
Yeah.
And then his teams lose.
The bad night.
At the buzzer both times.
Bad
the
night.
hockey and the overtime.
And that ends it,
As we'll get to in a minute. And the buzzer last night in Atlanta as well. We'll get to that in 1 minute after a word from Scott's. Mike, the weather is warming up. Spring is coming to an end. Summer's coming. That means more time outside enjoying backyard barbecues and playing catch on the lawn. But the sun beating down on your lawn, along with all the heavy foot traffic, can be really tough on your grass.
The time is now, gang, to give your lawn that crucial late spring feeding with Scott's Turf Builder Lawn Food. A late spring feeding with Scott's gives your lawn the essential nutrients to be strong and healthy. A strong, healthy lawn better able to stand up to the summer heat and all those activities you want to enjoy on it. A Feeding Now provides the essential nutrients your lawn needs to be healthy, lush, and strong. Pick up a bag of Scott's Turf Builder Lawn Food this weekend and feed your lawn. Feed it. Scott's is the official lawn care company of Major League Baseball.
Rebound, Al Horford. Al goes back up and in with 1.9 remaining. They don't have a timeout. Pierce puts it in play to Wall. Wall near midcourt. Beams it up. No good. And the Hawks win. The Atlanta Hawks have won.
I wasn't kidding when I said a pair of heartbreakers, 92-9 the game in Atlanta as the Hawks beat the Wizards last night on a putback by Al Horford with 1.9 seconds remaining. And as you heard in the play-by-play call, the Wizards didn't have a timeout to advance it to half court, so they threw the ball in. They wound up putting up a long shot that actually looked online when it left his hand. John Wall played last night, played pretty well.
Yeah, he played pretty well,
considering the hand. We'll never know. I continue to believe that if he had been healthy through this series, the Wizards were going to win the series, but now they're in a 2-3 hole going home. But if you didn't see the way this game plays out, it's tied in the waning seconds. Paul Pierce has the ball in his hands, loses it, goes down, trying to draw a foul, does not. I mean, he was not fouled. He's looking for a call. He's flailing like crazy, but no call. The Hawks go the other way. They get the layup to go up 2. Back come the Wizards the other way, and Paul Pierce knocks down his – I actually have the call.
Left wing, Paul Pierce for 3. It's there! Paul Pierce! Of course it is. 78-76, Wizards within 2.
Paul Pierce knocks in a 3 from the corner to give Washington the 1-point lead, and that sets up the Horford play.
Did you see him right after it? He turned around. Whose bench was he in front of?
He was in front of their bench.
Turned right around to the Atlanta bench, ran down, ended up knocking John Wall down, who came over to celebrate with him. But, I mean, Pierce, listen, well, we see him make a big shot at the end. We saw him miss a big shot at the end of the last game, and now he makes another big one. Everybody thinks this is going to be it. You know, obviously Atlanta has some time, but Washington takes that lead. So you had to be feeling pretty good about yourself if you were a fan of Washington at that point.
The call there on the Pierce shot, 99.1 WNEW, as Pierce hits a shot that could have won it, but then Horford just jumps right over Nene. And so Rudy brings up a good point. Why isn't Gortat in the game at that point? I mean, obviously for defensive purposes, you know, they want to be out there covering the perimeter, but it's a 1-point game, and Horford just comes flying right over, knocks Nene down like he's a small child. And then just puts up an easy putback and winds up being the first player in Atlanta history with at least 20 points, 10 boards, and 5 blocks in a game, including that game winner to give them the 3-2 lead.
Listen, it's a hustle play. You know, I mean, he's trailing Schroeder, who drives the lane. And that's an interesting story in and of itself. Dennis Schroeder's in the game, the backup guard. Now, in the fourth quarter, Atlanta went on a cold spell. They went 7 minutes without scoring a basket. Then they went on a 14-point run. Schroeder was instrumental in that. He's in the game at the end. Basically, Jeff Teague was, the starter, basically saying, keep him in the game. You know, he was instrumental in that situation in the fourth quarter and the points they were scoring. Keep him in the game. And he's the guy with the ball driving the lane. He said, I do it 100 times. You were expecting the ball to get kicked somewhere to one of the shooters. He takes it down the lane and gets the ball swatted, and there's Horford doing his thing. And Horford even said after the game, the play was for Schroeder. The play was for him to go down the lane, which was kind of interesting. It just shows, again, Atlanta and how they spread the wealth.
Here's Horford.
I wasn't supposed to be involved in the play at all. I was supposed to just set a screen for Kyle, which I did. And, we put our trust in Dennis. He had a great drive. And then when I just saw the ball go up, I just ran in there. It's just a hustle play. As making a winning play and just got the ball. My first instinct was just to put it in the basket. And
he played a really good game last night. He was 10 of 18 from the floor, and he was shooting, like he had a little mid-range shots he was knocking down. He knocked down a 3 at one point in the game last night. So Horford finishes with 23 points, 11 boards, and 5 block shots. The shooting was not pretty last night.
No, it wasn't.
Atlanta was 5 of 22 from 3, including 1 of 5 for Korver. Washington was 4 of 17 from 3. The Wizards wound up shooting 37% from the floor. They scored 34 points in the second half. And so Atlanta takes the 3-2 series lead. The other game last night, Golden State with an easy win over Memphis. Memphis playing without Tony Allen. Yeah. And Golden State, they get hot. I heard a quote Someone said when Golden State plays defense and hits shots, no one will beat them, and they did both of those.
I thought it was interesting because that's the first thing, as you're watching the game, Tony Allen's not in there. Such a great perimeter defensive player on those guards, and we saw him do well in that. And Steph Curry was asked after the game, and did things open up for you because Tony Allen wasn't in there? And Steph made sure he got in there that Golden State won the previous game, and Tony Allen played in that game as well. So while he gave him his props and said he's a great defender, he also said, he was on the court in the last game that we won. So, if things are flowing for us, we feel pretty good about ourselves.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
The best of Mike and Mike.
It was an amazing night in sports. We talk about being in an event-based society. You got the fight. Everyone in the world pays what they sell. 4.4 million pay-per-views, I was reading yesterday. They made, $400 million.
Yeah.
Because we live in an event-based society. If American Pharaoh wins the Preakness this weekend, then all eyes go on the Belmont. If American Pharaoh doesn't win this weekend, then very few eyes, comparatively speaking, go on the Belmont. We're an event-based society. People don't watch hockey in the same numbers they watch other sports. But you got a Game 7 in a playoff series, and if it starts getting late and that game is tied as it was last night, you get into overtime, the entire world is watching. That was a thrilling sporting event to watch. It was an event. Even if you didn't have a horse in the race. Again, I root for the Rangers. I'm a New Yorker. It doesn't resonate to my core. But yeah, I'm rooting for a team. But more than anything, you can't turn away. It's that kind of exciting. Game 7 overtime is an event.
To me, hockey is the best spectator sport. Is the best sport to be at, to watch. Regular season, playoffs, whatever. To me, that's me. I was when we lived in Arizona before we came here. We saw the Coyotes a bunch, and just I love watching the game, especially in the building. It certainly wasn't in the building last night. But we have different ways where our minds travel. Mine always come from the side of a former athlete. And in this case, it goes to the former athlete to the negative side of it, to, yes, the joy of the Rangers and winning Game 7, and in that instant, moving on. But my thought then immediately goes to Washington and to being in that situation of, here you are playing in a Game 7. You're in the mentality of you're in your season. You're playing after this game, hopefully a win. You're going on to play in the conference finals, and you don't get it. And then that overtime, this wasn't, a 3-1 lead with 10 minutes to go, and you're kind of not able to come back, and the end is there.
Right.
The end slaps you square. And let me tell you, when I say it, I mean it. It slaps you square in the face, the end for Washington. And when you go from so high of where you think you're going to today, these guys are literally, if not now, in a couple hours, going into their locker rooms and cleaning them out. It's a horrifically bad feeling. And that's one of the, as I saw the joy of the Rangers, I immediately went to Washington and said, God, I feel awful for those guys.
That image of Holtby just sprawled on his stomach, unable to get over there to the what amounted to essentially an empty net for Stepan on a rebound. Unbelievable. Anyway, Barry Melrose will join us in a few minutes with his take on all of that, his Subway fresh take. But right now we're going to exclusively, or along with our colleagues at Good Morning America, are going to be the first to release the results of an ABC News ESPN poll on the 12th. So that's 2 days ago. 504 people were polled at random via cell phone and landline and asked questions, a variety of really interesting questions about Deflategate, what we call hashtag shrinkage, their views on it, and how it has changed their perspective on some of the people involved. We'll make this sort of our own today's unique case of Nerd Notes. Today's intelligence brought to you by Castrol GTX Magnatech Motor Oil with intelligent molecules that cling to your engine to protect from the start. So the top line headline, by a nearly 2-to-1 margin, those who describe themselves as avid football fans believe Tom Brady and the Patriots cheated. And the word "and" is in capital letters. So not just Brady, right, but believe the Patriots cheated. Those fans said they support Brady's 4-game suspension and the team's $1 million fine and loss of draft picks when asked about the Deflategate penalties in this national poll conducted for ESPN and ABC News. I can give you some more specific numbers. 63% of people overall and 76% of avid fans support the sanctions. Now, let me ask you a question. You're an avid fan. Here's what I always wonder about these things. I find polling, look, it's a science.
It is.
People are educated in how to do this stuff. But on a topic like this, I hear 76% of avid fans support the sanctions. If you're an avid football fan, what does that most likely mean? 99 out of 100 avid football fans are the fans of a team.
Yes.
Right? Now, I get there are a lot more avid football fans now that don't necessarily support one team.
Right.
Because they play fantasy and they're just sort of into it for any number of reasons. But by and large, these are still people who are fans of a team. So I know all my Jet fan friends are thrilled.
Are happy about it. Right.
They think this is the greatest thing that ever happened.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much that influences that number.
Listen, I completely agree with you. When I saw the same thing when I saw avid fans, I thought, okay, well, who are they fans of? Obviously, fans of the Patriots, like our own, Patriot Ray, is going to be against all this. While for the most part, let's be honest, the Patriots are. Would you? I mean, we talk about Dallas being America's team, being loved and hated maybe the most, but would the most hated team out there be the Patriots before this? Yes. Because of Belichick. And quite honestly, all their winning, there's jealousy of their winning, but of Belichick and the organization with Spygate. Do we think out of the 32 teams, generally they're the most hated?
Yes,
I agree.
I think they are.
I think that was. I think no matter what happened, these sanctions would have been supported by most avid fans.
I think the Cowboys used to be.
I agree.
They just haven't been good enough.
No. I think it's the Patriots now.
And I think the Patriots, because of their winning, because of the style of their, sort of uniqueness of their coach,
right? Because
their quarterback is not only historically great, but this, incredibly handsome guy who's married to the biggest supermodel in the world.
Yeah.
They're very easy to hate.
Yeah, we really want to knock down a guy who has it all.
if you want, if you want to hate somebody, that's who you hate. And I think more people don't. If Peyton Manning had 4 rings, I think more people would be inclined to hate him. People, I think, have a more sympathetic view of Manning because he keeps getting there and losing.
Right.
But whatever. So 76% of avid fans support the sanctions. Bigger problem. This doesn't have anything to do with the previous thought. According to this poll, 85% overall think this kind of thing is not limited to the Patriots, that it happens with other teams. So the notion of bending/breaking, and let's even take bending out. The notion of cheating. You made a good distinction yesterday. That was what was in the open. The distinction between cheating and gamesmanship. You taught me something yesterday because I always believed that gamesmanship involved breaking a rule, and we looked up the definition, and the actual definition of gamesmanship means specifically that a rule is not broken. So cheating. 85% of fans think that cheating is not limited to the Patriots. Mike, from having been inside the game, is that an accurate representation?
You mean as far as overall cheating, not just
cheating, that there is cheating going on?
Without question. Without question. It's just what your definition, and we've heard people use the word gamesmanship for what if you define any, and I don't mean a penalty. I don't mean holding by an offensive lineman. That's not what we're talking about here.
So what are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about some of the things that they have gotten out of the game, the stick-em, the spraying of the jerseys, the spraying of the gloves for a better grip on the football, or any other things that you can cut corners on. Today, listen,
electronic stealing of signals, we know that was at the center of the Spygate thing. Do you think that still goes on regularly?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt if you can pick up. Well, what makes that difficult now is the headsets. So you're not. How
about turning off someone else's headset when they're in your building?
Well, the only problem with that is as soon as that headset goes off and they tell the officials, the other team has to turn their headset off.
Glad you said that. I've got a great story to share with you. I was about a story about Bill Parcells and Bill Walsh that I will share with you coming up in a couple of minutes. But let me give you some more results of this. 69% of avid fans think Brady cheated. Most support him as a future Hall of Famer nonetheless. Now, Tom Brady is, if anyone has ever been a cinch Hall of Famer, it's Brady. I remember we had Joe Montana on like the day after he got into the Hall of Fame. And I remember him talking about how he was nervous that day. And I remember saying to him, with all due respect, why? What were you nervous about? If Joe Montana's not getting into the Hall of Fame, they might as well not have a Hall of Fame.
That's exactly right.
Does this, in your opinion, mean that maybe Brady doesn't get in the first year?
In my opinion, absolutely not.
The writers, you don't think, want to hold, a little bit against him?
Okay. In my opinion,
you
no.
Tell me.
No. Well, listen, it's tough for me to speak for the writers, but
Tom Brady is no greater player than Barry Bonds relative to their sport.
Mm-hmm.
He's no greater player than Roger Clemens relative to their sport. Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens aren't in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference is I don't think they're ever going to be. I believe Brady will get in, but I think it is possible. And who knows? Look, there's a lot of this left to play out. I think it's possible those guys will make him wait a year.
There's a lot of this left to play out. There's more of Brady's career, and then there's a 5-year waiting period.
Right.
So right now when we do these polls, it's raw. You know what I mean? It hasn't had a chance to scab over. So, which it's going to in time. I think he walks in on the first ballot.
If you asked me to vote, I would vote for Tom Brady, for sure.
Wouldn't
even think about it. Just 52% of all Americans see. By the way, I would vote for Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens.
We have said that
those guys
multiple
too.
times. Absolutely.
Next on the poll, just 52% of all Americans see Tom Brady as a good role model. That rises, by the way, among avid fans, this incident aside. But only 52% see Brady as a good role model. That, I guess, is significant to the extent that Tom Brady is a very marketable person, and enormous, almost endless endorsement opportunities, not just while he's playing, many of which he has not taken advantage of.
He has not taken advantage of.
He doesn't do nearly as many ads as a guy like Peyton does.
Right.
He probably could. This, I guess, could negatively influence that.
Look, when you put the word cheating by anybody, and that's what we're doing here. You're now saying here's this guy who has all these Super Bowl trophies, has the Super Bowl life. Let's say he's got it, right? But now you put the word cheater next to him. To some, because what we all do is we say, what do we tell our kids? Here's a guy that was successful, making all the money in the world, got by all accounts, a great family. We always bring up, his wife, who was a model wife, but, you don't have to have a model wife to have a great marriage. You can have a great marriage, a great family life. He's at the top of his game, got all the money in the world, he's got everything going on. And then your kid says, why are they calling Tom Brady? We've cheered for him for so long, Dad. Why now we calling him a cheater? So now you have to, explain that to the kid, and whenever you have that put next to the name, that always changes your thought process.
So those are the top-line results from the ESPN ABC News poll, which we are just, again, revealed exclusively here and on Good Morning America. We'll have more on this as we go, but interesting stuff. Ryan Smith, who is ABC's legal analyst, will join us a little later with some insight into this as well, and we certainly would like to hear your thoughts. You can tweet your thoughts at us at Mike and Mike using the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Okay, Barry Melrose in 1 minute on what we should be expecting now that the NHL has reached its Final Four, and just what it's like to be on the ice or on the bench during a moment when, just as a spectator, you can't catch your breath. That's coming up after this word from Cabot. Mike, behold the triple play. In baseball, it is beautiful, it is rare, and it's definitely effective. Now we take you from a triple play at the ball game to a triple play for your back deck, specifically the triple oil protection of Australian timber oil from Cabot Wood Stain.
Yep, it has a combination of 3 superior grade oils, provides a rich color that gives your wood deck all-weather protection, long-lasting beauty. Australian timber oil, originally formulated to stand up to the harsh conditions of the Australian outback, so you know that it will let your deck handle any curveballs that Mother Nature may throw its way. Australian timber oil from Cabot Wood Stain, 1 can, triple oil protection. Cabot, that's pro. Find Cabot at Cabot at your neighborhood Ace, a helpful place where getting help is like going to your neighbor, a neighbor with all the best advice and brands like Cabot to help with all your wood staining project needs. Ace, the helpful place.
The floor was shaking. The place was roaring. People didn't believe what was going on. Rangers are headed to the Eastern Conference Final. It was tremendous.
Unbelievable drama last night at Madison Square Garden. We are Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance, and joining us now on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, the most interesting hockey analyst in the world. Our friend Barry Melrose is with us with some thoughts on last night's game. And Barry, I just want to start with this because the drama of it is so overwhelming that just sitting in front of a television watching it is difficult to breathe. Can you just describe, for the 99.9% of us who will never know, what it's like to actually be on the ice or on the bench during a Game 7 of a playoff series, during an overtime in a playoff game where the next goal will make all the difference in the world?
Well, obviously, a playoff game is intense anyway, so multiply it by 100-fold in a Game 7 because it's a do-or-die, a win-or-go-home scenario. So the Game 7 I was in, players are very businesslike that morning, not a lot of laughing and joking, very focused, very good practice, short and sweet. Guys came to the rink early. Everyone wanted to be at the rink as soon as they could be in the afternoon, get ready for the game. Again, not a lot of laughing and joking in the dressing room, very businesslike, and just it's the greatest feeling in the world to be in a Game 7, to challenge yourself, to challenge your teammates, to be part of a team. If you heard Henrik Lundqvist talking last night, you could tell how much he cared about his teammates coming back 3 games to 1 to force a Game 7 and then winning it. But if you're an adrenaline junkie, a Game 7 is what you want to be in, man.
And as far as, the Game 7, and when you saw this game going on, and we saw Washington taking control early, looked like they were skating faster. When it got to overtime, did you have a clear-cut advantage for Washington at that point, or because of Henrik, did you say this is anybody's game?
I thought the Rangers would win. I just believe in Henrik. His numbers in Game 7 are fantastic. I think you guys probably got the number in front of you. I think he tied Marty Brodeur and Patrick Roy last night for wins in Game 7.
That's correct.
Anytime you tie those two guys, that's phenomenal. And I just had the feeling. I know Washington had to play early. They had some good chances, but you just had that feeling that Henrik was going to keep them in there, and then the Rangers, you gave one good shot, and that's exactly what happened. The shot from the point went right on to step and stick. So, you get that. I've always been a big believer that the goaltender is the most important position, certainly in hockey, but I think all sports, because no other position player plays every minute. And, I just felt he would keep them in there and they would score a goal just like they did in Game 5. So the guy's phenomenal. He's just a winner, and the bigger the game, the better he plays.
Mike and Barry, the number you're looking for, Lundqvist now 6-1 all-time in Game 7s. That ties Brodeur and Roy for the most Game 7 wins. He's won 10 straight elimination games at home. Can you put your finger for the casual hockey fan on just what makes him so good from a technique standpoint, from just a heart standpoint? What is it that makes him so good that he rises, it seems, every single time in games like that?
Mental toughness, mental strength. It's not physical because all goaltenders are well taught. All goaltenders have great fundamentals. Holtby has great fundamentals. He played really, really well. But you just get to that moment where is the save made or is it not saved? Is the rebound kicked out or is it not kicked out? Is the rebound smothered or is it laying in front of you 3-4 feet away? Henrik just has that ability when the game gets on the line that he just gets better and more tougher physically, tougher mentally. The players get more confidence in him. They know that they can take chances because they got that guy in net and he'll bail them out. And it's just a great feeling. And every year it seems he adds on to that reputation of how good he is. And all of a sudden you start thinking when you're playing Henrik that if you don't get to him early, you're not going to get to him because he's going to get better and better as the game goes on.
Mike and Mike, Barry Melrose is with us, our friends at Cabot. Again, What's on Deck is brought to you by Cabot Premium Wood Care. They ask us to put it together, What's on Deck. Let's have you do it for us, Barry. Obviously, now we get down to the Final Four in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We have the Rangers, we have the Blackhawks, we have the Ducks, we have the Lightning. In order, Barry, rank them for us in terms of your pick of best chance to win the Cup. 1 through 4, who do you like right now most all the way down to least as far as chances of winning the whole thing amongst the Final Four? Rangers, Blackhawks, Ducks, and Lightning.
Well, number 1 is Chicago. I've been a Chicago booster for years. We talked about Henrik getting better come playoff time. Chicago does that. Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, Seabrook, Keith, Sharp, Hossa. These guys just get better and better as the rounds go on. And they're just phenomenal players, phenomenal talents. Kane is unbelievable, scores big goals. Toews, I think, is the best leader in sports. The guy's just phenomenal. Number 2, I'd go with the Ducks. I think the Western Conference is better than the East. The Ducks are an awesome team. They're gigantic. Chicago's going to have to handle the size of Getzlaf and Perry, who are basically leading the playoffs in scoring. They've got sort of an unknown goaltender in Frederik Andersen, a young goaltender. That's probably their weak point, but certainly a great hockey club. Then I would go New York. Obviously, they went to the finals last year. They won the President's Trophy this year. You've got Henry Lundqvist in net. And a team of non-stars. Like you watch the Rangers, who do you check? Who would you focus on? Because every night it's someone else scores a goal. Last night it's Hayes and Stepan. The night before, Nash scores a goal. The night before, Brassard has a good game. No one guy on the Rangers is carrying them. Thus, that makes them tough to play against. And it's no disrespect to Tampa. I just feel that they're younger. Not a lot of those guys have been in the playoff situation. They got a goaltender that's in the playoffs for the first time. They're just sort of an unknown quantity as far as I'm concerned with Ben Bishop and net. So that would be my rated 4, the 2 Western teams first and then the 2 Eastern teams.
Conference Finals is What's on Deck, brought to you by Cabot Premium Wood Care.
Now let's go this way. Take the 4 teams, all the players on all 4 teams. We're doing the old schoolyard pickup game. Who you taking first?
I take Jonathan Toews first. I think the guy's unbelievable. He's got 2 Stanley Cups. He's got 2 gold medals. He's got 2 World Juniors. The guy's a winner. Whoever he plays for, that team wins, and he is always out there against the other team's best player.
I was thinking you might go Lundqvist. I thought you might go goalie on that, thinking that if the goalie stands on his head, that, it doesn't really, it may not matter what else happens on the ice.
Well, certainly you couldn't go wrong picking Lundqvist. He'd probably be 2 or 3, but I think you have to have that leadership on a team. And I think Jonathan Toews is the best leader. He's Mark Messier now. He's the new Mark Messier in the NHL.
Barry Melrose likes the Blackhawks and the Rangers, if you look at it, to wind up meeting for the Stanley Cup Final. Barry, we appreciate you getting up early for us this morning. We'll see you down the road. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry.
You guys take care.
That's Barry Melrose with us. And again, I can't even fathom, being on the ice. When you're playing, you have control over the event.
Yeah.
I understand when you're coaching, your mind is going a mile a minute. You have 8 million different things to deal with. But even in that, you just don't have the control over the events that you do. And when the play is so one-sided, again, hockey and soccer are the 2 sports where the play can be completely one-sided against you, and you could be winning and have the play being one-sided against you. I've never coached either of those sports. I've coached. Little kids.
Right.
But even that, the sports that I have ever coached my kids in or whatever it is, the team that's playing better is winning. Mm-hmm. So you can tell, look, we got to play better. And that, I don't even know how what do you say?
It doesn't have to, you don't say anything. At the end of the day.
Knock the goalie down.
Well, the thing is, these guys have all been playing long enough that they all know this better than we know this and know they have to get by the goalie if they're going to move on.
Mike and Mike.
I'm Buster Olney, and on the latest Baseball Tonight podcast, we review what may turn out to be the best pitching performance of the year, and I've got a great trade idea. You can download it from ESPN.com/PodCenter.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
The question that I have, and Lester Munson is the perfect person to answer it, is, can Tom Brady realistically sue the National Football League? Lester is our ESPN legal analyst, and he joins us now on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Lester, good morning. And that, with the sort of the table set that way, that's the thing I've been wondering about for the last couple of days. Realistically speaking, could you see Tom Brady suing the National Football League? And if he did, how would that go? How would that take place?
I can easily see that Brady and his lawyers may decide to sue the National Football League. I have serious doubts about whether Brady can succeed in such a lawsuit, and I think that Brady and his group should very carefully consider what might happen in the lawsuit. In the Theodore Wells investigation, Brady did not give up his cell phone, he did not give up his emails, he did not give up his text messages. He stonewalled the investigators for the NFL. He will not be able to do that in any lawsuit, so that when the NFL defends itself in the lawsuit, it will obtain by court process everything that Brady has refused to give up. So things in the lawsuit could become even more incriminating than they were in the original investigation. And I think Brady and his group should very carefully consider that.
I guess my thinking on that, Lester, I understand your point, is I'm assuming Brady is only doing it if he believes he is completely innocent and thus hasn't done anything wrong, and thus there would be nothing in there that would incriminate him because he isn't a criminal, using the relative term that it is in this case. Am I missing something in that?
No, but I think Brady can look at his text messages and his emails and make one conclusion, and somebody else, any one of us, can look at them and make another conclusion. When you go through the text messages and the emails that are in the Wells report, it's almost impossible to conclude that Brady could be innocent here, and I can only infer from that his own text messages and his own emails would add to that evidence that has piled up against him. It's real easy when you're looking at it by yourself with your lawyers to conclude that this is going to help you, and then you find out the hard way in the litigation process that this is not going so well. I don't think there's going to be a smoking gun there, but there's going to be additional evidence there.
Well, could the smoking gun, and let me take it here, because that's the first thing we all thought of if it went to court, was that now they could get the text from Brady. But also, couldn't they get the word now of two guys who have been suspended from their team? So two guys where the Patriots have said, we've done nothing, yet these two guys, McNally and Jastrzemski, have been suspended without pay. Now, I'm sure they would be called as witnesses by the league if this thing went to court. And if you're Tom's lawyer, are you thinking, you know what, unless somehow these two guys got set up on their own island somewhere, that they may not have some very nice things to say at this point?
I think if you're Tom Brady's lawyer, that's exactly right, Mike. I think you have to worry about Jastrzemski, and in particular, you have to worry about McNally. He has some very nasty things to say about Tom Brady in the text messages that we already have. He was very frustrated and unhappy with Brady and Brady's criticism of his work on the footballs. He even threatens Brady, saying he's going to inflate the footballs to 16 pounds per square inch. He's going to make them into watermelons. He's going to make them into rugby balls. He says all of this while also throwing one expletive after another at Brady in those text messages. So, yes, those two guys, Jastrzemski and McNally, could easily become adverse to Brady if he is to file this lawsuit.
Lester Munson, legal analyst, is with us on Mike and Mike. One of the questions that came up here yesterday is if the New England Patriots are maintaining total innocence in this, which was completely in the statement that Robert Kraft released initially, saying that well, how could they possibly ignore the science? We don't believe we've done anything wrong here at all. Why are McNally and Jastrzemski suspended without pay?
That's an interesting question. When you do read the report and when you understand what those guys were doing, somebody at the Patriots has to do something. Suspending those guys is totally inconsistent with a posture of total innocence. Either you're innocent or you're guilty. Now they're taking it both ways. There's no question about that. And McNally, they're both part-time. They were both paid by the hour. McNally was down to the point where he worked only at home games, so it's not like it's a big part of his life, but it's something that he obviously enjoyed. Now he has basically been fired, and he will probably have his own ways of getting even when the time comes.
All right, this scenario, you are now Tom Brady's attorney. So two scenarios. Let's start with the first one. Tom comes to you right now and says, okay, Lester, listen, I didn't do this. I had nothing to do with this, but the 4-game suspension is there. How would you tell him to go forward? Would you tell him to go to court and try and fight this? How would you lay this out to Tom if Tom said, Lester, I didn't do it?
My advice to Tom, if I were his lawyer, would be, we file the appeal today. We demand an independent arbitrator. The independent arbitrator must be somebody like Barbara Jones, the arbitrator who did the Ray Rice case. If you have an independent arbitrator, you have a chance, if nothing else, to reduce the suspension from 4 games to fewer games. So that would be the first step. If you cannot get the independent arbitrator, if Goodell appoints Harold Henderson or somebody that is totally under the control of the NFL, then would be the time that I, as the lawyer, would suggest filing suit, so that you want to get a fair arbitration to try to reduce the suspension, and that's your real point of attack. after the arbitration is over, going to court, I think, is fraught with disaster because of the discovery process, because of the additional emails, because Brady will have to face the false answers and the stonewalling that he did during the investigation. So if they can get somebody like this ex-judge, Barbara Jones, to be the arbitrator, then they're going to make some progress here. And the good part about that is that in that arbitration, Goodell and the other NFL people will be forced to testify. Goodell's testimony in the Ray Rice case was embarrassing for the National Football League. So that's the point of vulnerability that I would exploit as the lawyer.
And I guess this would be a quicker answer. What if Tom came to you and said, Lester, I'm complicit. I've done something here. I didn't let the air out of the footballs, but I am involved. What would you tell him?
Then you tell him, accept the 4-game suspension, get ready for the 5th game, which is against the Colts, I think, and just be ready for that. If there's any admission of complicity, if he looks at the text messages and the emails and he reads them the way a normal person would read them, then he's going to have to say, all right, let's bring this to an end. I have suffered enough damage. You might even want to make some sort of statement of contrition or remorse over what happened.
I don't see that one coming, especially the way the owner has backed him completely and the organization has backed him completely. Lester, you do as good a job with this as anybody does of explaining this in a way that normal people understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike.
The best of Mike and Mike.
ABC News and ESPN did a poll over the last few days, conducting this poll to determine the opinions of average Americans up to and including avid football fans about Deflategate / hashtag shrinkage and Tom Brady. And there were some very interesting results. We and Good Morning America exclusively released them this morning at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. 63% of people overall, 76% of avid fans support the sanctions that the league brought down against the Patriots. 85% overall think this kind of thing, I guess cheating, is not limited to the Patriots, that it happens with other teams. 69% of avid fans think Tom Brady cheated, and just 52% of all Americans see Tom Brady as a good role model. Those are some of the top-line stories coming out of this poll. Let's just bring in our ESPN and ABC legal analyst, Ryan Smith. He joins us from New York. And, Ryan, let's just start quickly with the poll. What was your reaction of the things that we learned in this poll? What jumped out to you as most significant?
The biggest stunner to me, that 8 and 10 think that this happens on other teams. Because think about this, guys. If you think 8 and 10 fans think this happened on other teams, then in a sense, what you're saying to the NFL is, hey, while you thought it was important enough to take away a 1st and a 4th rounder, $1 million, and suspend Tom Brady for 4 games for what he and they did, other teams are doing it. 8 and 10 of them are doing it. So what do we do now for the NFL, who's trying to not only protect the integrity of the game, but protect brand NFL, right? They want people to look at the game and say, everything's on the up and up. But if people think 8 and 10 are out there doing something similar, what do? Do you go on a witch hunt? Do you look at other teams' footballs at every game or what they've done in the past? And do you try to weed out other things that might violate competitive rules? Because we all know guys are going to push the limit. But then if fans are out there thinking other teams do this routinely, that's a huge problem.
Do you think that we found out in sports time heals wounds, and this is a fresh wound right now, so 5 years from now, 8 years from now, if you polled the exact same people, the exact same questions, do you think it would be a different result?
I think it would be a little bit less, but not substantially less, and that brings me to that Brady number, about 69% of avid fans thinking that he cheated in this instance. If one of your biggest stars is doing this kind of thing and people think that he's cheated, that reverberates, I think, throughout the league longer than just this year. So over time, people start looking at the game and saying, I know guys are trying to get a competitive advantage, but I think it's commonplace that they take it too far. I think that is the lasting impression of this Deflategate scandal. A lot of people out there say, well, it's just happening for now, no big deal. But the problem is it sticks out in fans' minds, especially fans with children who say, I want my kids to play the game on the up and up, but here I am watching the TV screen with these otherworldly athletes doing things I think to even secure competitive advantages so that my kid doesn't look at the game the same way. So I think while it's not going to be as big, I think it's going to reverberate through the league for years to come.
Our legal analyst Ryan Smith is with us from New York. All right, counselor, I'm putting you on retainer. I'm Tom Brady, and I come to you as my lawyer and I say, listen, I didn't do this. I didn't do any of this. I'm completely innocent. What's your game plan? What's the first thing you're doing, and how are you taking him through this process?
Well, the first thing I'm doing is I'm addressing this appeal. The first thing I say, the very first thing I say is don't say a word. And I know a lot of people are out there skewering Tom Brady, saying, why isn't he talking? Why isn't he apologizing? Just think about what that means, not only for the appeal and also the court process if it comes to that. He says something that's going to be used against him. So you say nothing, you lawyer up, that's what he's done so far. In this appeals process, I'm talking about the evidence, I'm talking about the lack of precedent, and I'm talking about the science, which I would say is faulty. The evidence. All we have in that document is, while it seems damning of Tom Brady, it's a lot of people talking about Tom Brady and what he did, including thinly veiled statements about what he was saying about these attendants and these footballs. Is that enough to give him a 4-game suspension? Then you talk about the precedent. Where is this in precedent? Ray Rice got 2 games initially for domestic violence, and we're giving Tom Brady 4 games for something like this that seems a lot less significant. And then the science, I mean, that's the first thing you do in a courtroom. You try to knock the science just by getting another scientist who uses a different methodology. Now, if you lose this stage, I bring it to the federal courts and I say, these guys were unfair in the way they evaluated this claim, and that was something that worked for a lot of guys in the NFL before, Ray Rice among them, and Adrian Peterson to a lesser extent. So I think he's got a lot of options. Then if he wants to sue him directly, it's a defamation claim, a lot harder to prove. Jonathan Vilma tried that, and it's about trying to show that the NFL had actual malice against him. Problem with that is, you bring up a defamation claim, there's discovery, now you have to talk about turning over that phone, and guys coming into court to testify, and I think if you're Tom Brady, that's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah, that was exactly where I was going next. You have to turn over the phone, and the 2 guys who have been suspended from the team, all of a sudden may become hostile witnesses against you, though, because everybody thinks you all work together. Now they may work against you. So at some point, at what point, if you were guiding him, would you say, all right, Tom, you know what? You've taken it far enough. You're probably better off just leaving it alone now and take the discipline wherever it's at this point?
I wouldn't. I'd fight it all the way. And the reason why, I'd start with precedent, guys. It's one of these situations where you look at the NFL, and they're in a public relations nightmare in the last couple of years. Everybody's looking at them, a lot of critical eyes on Roger Goodell. So the allegation that players are going to make is, these guys are just reacting off the public situation out here. They're just saying, we're looking at the media, the public is skewering the NFL, and therefore they're handing out these unprecedented fines. So for Tom Brady, I would look at this and say, why would I turn over my phone? What is my phone going to do here? Tom Brady's agents made the argument of, how come in the report we didn't see statements from Tom Brady and what he said? And that's why the agent thought this was they had it in for Tom Brady. But that could be a strong argument in federal court where you try to argue, look, these guys went outside the bounds of precedent. And they did. That means if he loses the appeal and you end up trying to bring it to federal court, went outside the bounds of precedent, and they basically did something based on public pressure and other factors. So I think if you're Brady, maybe you accept a limited suspension, but I think given the recent history, the Peterson case, the Rice cases, the Saints Bountygate case, there's precedent out there in the courts and the appeals process that says that if you fight this long enough, you might get the whole thing overturned.
Ryan Smith, our legal analyst, with excellent insight. And the one thing that's been sort of bothering me a little bit is if you go back to the initial statement made by Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, when the punishment came down, they're not just saying they think the punishment is too heavy. They're saying we didn't do it. They're saying we fall back on our science. We fully defend Tom Brady. We're not guilty here. If that is the case, how is that reconciled with the 2 ball boys, Jastrzemski and McNally, being suspended without pay by the team? That's been sticking in my head. Can you explain it to me?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And if I'm Jastrzemski and McNally, I'm lawyering up too, and I'm saying, wait a second, don't I have a case against the Patriots and to some degree the NFL? Because you look at it this way. You saw in the report that they tried to link this to Spygate. And that's an important distinction here, right? Because back in Spygate, Belichick admitted that he misunderstood certain things about the rules. He was fined, penalized. Here in this report, arguably, the Patriots, Belichick, others, they were vindicated, yet the Patriots were penalized. There's not a whole lot Bob Kraft, I think, is going to do about that because there's a lot of other deeper understandings and relationships between Goodell and Kraft where I don't know if this is the battle that you want to pick. And I think Kraft has already said we're going to accept the penalty. But if you're Jastrzemski and you're McNally, you're saying, wait a second, I did this at allegedly Tom Brady's instruction, and now I'm being put in the fire. I may never work again in sports, let alone for the Patriots. and I've lost income, I've lost other things. I think at that point you're arguing, well, wait a second, why am I on the firing line? Because all I did was implement the directions of the team, and the team is out here saying I did nothing wrong, and the report is out there saying they did nothing wrong.
Let's go back to the word precedent that you had talked about, and I understand in the other appeals where that was used, because there was the old personal conduct policy, the new policy, the league was trying to go to the new, the players' appeal saying was part of the old, so I saw precedent there. When you say precedent in this case, and Tom Brady's lawyers want to use that, Ryan, what is the precedent? If the league said, all right, guys, you tell us what the precedent, this hasn't happened before. So what precedent are you going on that's saying how Tom should be disciplined? Because we don't have this as happening before.
Yeah, great legal argument there, and I'm going to tell you what they'd say on the other side. They would say, look, the original competition rules say that the penalty for this kind of infraction is discipline, including but not limited to $25,000. The NFL is going to argue not only that, but the player conduct policy allows us to go to this length. It's obscure for a reason, folks. If we feel that we need to do something like this, we can do it. But that's where the argument of apples and oranges comes from. The Brady's team will argue, look at all these other penalties that happened for other infractions, and you didn't go nearly this far. Now you're slamming Tom Brady in this case. The NFL is going to argue, hey, it's apples and oranges. Those were different cases. We had different policy out there, and there's no precedent, so we have the latitude to do that. That's why I think that it's going to be a little bit difficult for Brady to win this stage of the appeal, because it's either going to be Roger Goodell who's hearing it, or somebody he designates, and I think if he designates somebody who used to be in the league office, I think in many ways people are going to say, well, that person is going to look at this as if they're coming from that league office background and say, well, the NFL has the right to impose a penalty that's as vague as this one. So I think it's going to be a battle there, but then it goes to federal court if he pushes it that far, and he says, this is fundamentally unfair. When there's no precedent, you can't just throw the book at me based on you having a little bit of latitude in the CBA.
So this really may just be getting started. Ryan, this outstanding insight. Thank you so much this morning. We'll see you again soon. Thanks.
Anytime, guys.
This has been the best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNradio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, Mike Golick here, and I certainly love to fish. And when my dad took me out fishing for the first time when I was 6 and I caught that bluegill, I was so proud. Such a great memory, an experience everybody should have. Whether it's the first of the day or first of a lifetime, TakeMeFishing.org wants you to get out and make your first catch. And if you show them using hashtag #FirstCatchSweeps, you can win an Evinrude E-Tech G2 powered Ranger bass boat. Learn more at TakeMeFishing.org.
No purchase necessary. 48 U.S. and D.C. 18 and older. Ends 5/25/15. Void in Alaska, Hawaii, and where prohibited. See site for rules.
Two of baseball's best go head-to-head in interleague action when the Tigers head to St. Louis to face the Cardinals. That one is gone. The pregame at 7 Eastern, first pitch at 8, Sunday on ESPN and ESPN Radio.